Alright guys, another video here. Fractions as decimals. This was lesson 22. To convert fractions into decimals, remember we had three things we were trying to look for. First thing was if we have a power of 10, it's really easy to put it into a decimal form. This one here is 17 thousandths. Well, thousandths, there's no integer in front, so it's going to have a 0 in front, then a decimal point. And then thousandths, we can either look at the number of zeros in the denominator, or we can use that strategy where we go tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and write three empty slots and put the numerator in those empty slots. Remember, we have to start at the very back. So 7 would go here, 1 would go here, and there's nothing to fill this one, so we fill it with a 0. That right there is 17 thousandths. That would be our final answer there. If we don't have one that's in a power of 10, we want to hopefully see if we can put it into a power of 10. With our second example, 28 over 40, or 28 fortieths, we can get this into a power of 10 by either dividing by 2 and getting our denominator to 20 and then multiplying by 5, or if we saw it right away, we would see that both these numbers are divisible by 4, and that would get us into tenths. So if we divide the denominator by 4 and we divide our numerator by 4, we get an equivalent fraction. That equivalent fraction is then 7 over 10. And once we get it into a power of 10, 7 over 10, that's tenths. So we can just go ahead and write it as tenths, which will be no integer in front, so it's a 0. That goes there. Then our decimal point. And if I really needed to, I could put that slot for tenths, and our numerator would go there. That's 7 tenths. There's our final answer. Now, if worst comes to worst, worst case scenario, we can't get this into a power of 10, we need to just divide it out. And the one thing we need to really make sure that we're conscious of is if there's a Repetton bar, we want to divide out the number as far as we can until we see any kind of pattern if it develops. If not, we hope that the decimal will terminate, and the ones that I'm going to give you will definitely terminate. So if you're going like 10 digits and it still hasn't terminated, you really got to ask yourself, or ask me, am I doing the right thing? So 1 divided by 6, since I can't get 6 into a power of 10, I'm going to do some side work over here. 1 divided by 6, that means 6 goes into 1, and I do my long division. I put a 1 there. 6 goes into 1 0 times. I know I'm going to have a decimal up top and a decimal down here. I add a 0. 6 goes into 10 one time. That's a 6. I subtract. That's going to give me 4. I add a 0. I bring it down. 6 now goes into 40 6 times. That's going to be 36. I subtract. That's going to be 4. I add a 0. I bring it down. And at this point, I'm seeing that this is going to have this repeating pattern with the 6's. Because every time I multiply 6 times 6, I'm going to get 36. When I subtract, it's going to have a difference of 4. So at this point, I can probably assume, it's pretty safe to say, that this is going to have a repeating pattern. So 1/6 is going to equal 0.16 repeating. And that would be my final answer for this one. Dividing it out works every time. You want to use those tips about trying to get it into a power of 10 so you can write it really quick. If worst comes to worst, like I said, divide it out, and that will work every time. Good luck.